Welcome back to the second video in our Free Flight Friday series here on Sim Sunday. The idea of this series, of course, being that the real Airbus pilot and I simply fly anywhere in any aircraft, and it's not part of any formal series that you've been following on the channel so far. And just like in the last video where the real Airbus pilot flew from Strathaven to Peterlee in the northeast of England in X-Plane on board the Diamond Twin-Star DA62 and X-Plane 11, and in this video we're back in our local airfield here in Strathaven in South Lanarkshire, where I'm planning to fly this gorgeous Carenado Diamond Twin-Star DA62 across to Newtownards in County Down, Northern Ireland, which of course would be the GA airport nearest the town that I was brought up in, and of course that being Belfast. However, I'm not planning a direct flight from Strathaven to Newtownards. We're going to do a little bit of sightseeing on the way, but I'll come back to that a little bit later on in the video. So as I explained, we're at Strathaven Airfield, just over 1 mile to the east of the town of Strathaven in rural South Lanarkshire, which is part of Avondale and Clydesdale. The Strathaven Airfield scenery that you're seeing today is part of Scot Flight, which is specifically designed as an add-on to Orbx EU Scotland, which I've also got installed. And as most of you know, I uninstalled Orbx True Earth a number of months ago because it was killing my PC. Right, jumping into the cockpit or the cabin of this gorgeous Carenado DA62. Let's switch on the master battery switch and of course the avionics, which brings to life Carenado's fantastic version of the Garmin G1000 avionics pack. I do have installed Carenado's synthetic vision for the G1000, but I'm afraid guys, it doesn't work. I've managed to tie down the problem to a conflict between Carenado's synthetic vision for the G1000 and Aerosoft's Airbus A330 Professional for prepared 3D version 4.5. Synthetic vision problems aside, I still think this Carenado DA62 is a fantastic version delivered by Carenado. Right, it's time to close the doors and get this aircraft prepared for the short flight across the Irish Sea, where of course we will be doing some sightseeing along the way in a bid to show you what this Carenado DA62 is like, along with Orbx's True Earth Scotland and Northern Ireland, part of their EU series, and of course Scot Flight as an add-on. In the real world, of course, the Diamond DA62 has air conditioning, but before the aircraft is powered up we need to keep some airflow coming into the cockpit. And then it's time to open up the fuel valves. Let's switch on the right engine master and fuel pumps before checking that it's all clear to start the right engine. And now we follow the same process for the left engine. With pre-taxi checks complete, it's time to taxi to the longest of the 3 grass strip runways here at Strathaven. That of course being runway 27. Looking at the rendition of this fantastic little airfield just over 2 miles from my home here in west central Scotland, I have to say that the guys at Scot Flight have done an excellent job recreating Strathaven in all its glory. Some of you might even recognise the house here at Strathaven Airfield because it was featured on Channel 4's Grand Designs. And of course I'll put a link to that video in the show notes below. Okay, run-ups complete. It's time to head to the grass strip here, runway 27 at Strathaven. time of recording this video, about 8 years ago, I used to have a half share in a microlight that I kept at Strathaven airfield. And even though it was touch and go if I was ever going to get this Diamond DA62 off the bumpy grass strip at runway 27 in Strathaven, I am going to still try and follow real life protocol by a turn to the north and ultimately departing to the east on the dead side of the runway, which of course is the south side on runway 27. Travel anywhere in South Lanarkshire and you're guaranteed to see a wind turbine, because South Lanarkshire has more wind turbines than any other county in Europe. And just to the east of Strathaven, skirting the counties of South Lanarkshire, East Ayrshire and of course Glasgow City, you will find the Whiteleys wind farm, which at the time of recording this video was the largest wind farm in Europe. And of course, thanks to Scot Flight's add-on for Orbx EU Scotland, the Whiteleys wind farm. In fact, most of the wind farms in Scotland are depicted here in prepared 3D. As you can see, the cycling and hiking paths are also perfectly recreated here on Scot Flight scenery for Orbx. It's now that I suppose I should own up that I did stop the flight sim and change the weather slightly. Using Active Sky and Active Sky Cloud Art, I'd set the weather to the 1st of July 2020. But clearly that's too much to ask in the height of summer here in West Central Scotland. I did say at the beginning of this video that I was planning the scenic route between Strathaven and Newtownards. I wanted to start this virtual flight on a route that I've taken many times on board a microlight out of Strathaven, and that of course is heading towards Rothesay in Bute, which is an island in the Clyde estuary with a grass air ambulance strip. And as we approach the Ayrshire coast, you can see that Scot Flight has also perfectly recreated the Hunterston nuclear power station. Without pulling out my old flying maps in this area, I can't remember the rules around flying close to this nuclear power station. I think it is something like 4,000 foot. I can't remember, guys, and I'm no doubt going to break it here in Flight Sim. But of course, that's the great thing about flying in the virtual world. You can do whatever you like. The island in the Clyde estuary straight ahead of us is called Millport, and it's a popular day tourist location easily accessible by a short ferry ride from Largs, which is the town I'm overhead right now. And straight ahead of us is the island of Bute.
Heading 245. On navigation, climb and maintain altitude 6,000. Cessna Hotel, Charlie X-ray.
I know that it is hard to see, but I do promise you guys that the grass air ambulance strip here in Bute is available on Scot Flight's add-on scenery for Orbx EU Scotland. Right, that was Rothesay on Bute, and the island straight ahead of us is the largest island in the Clyde estuary, and that of course is Arran. We're approaching the main town on Arran, which is called Broddock, and again you access Arran via a ferry which takes 1 hour from Ardrossan and Ayrshire across to the main town here of Brodick. Over the 2.5 decades that I've lived in Scotland, I've visited Arran several times. Of course, the most memorable trips to this island were to the annual fly-in in May, where a farmer in the west of the island with a passion for aviation, with a field on flat ground near an outdoor pursuit centre, would cut 2 grass runway strips, would invite anyone with a microlight to join him for a barbecue during a warm summer's afternoon in May. Right, approaching Lamlass on the east coast of Arran, it's time for us to head out to sea again, heading in the direction of the Ailsa Craig, also known as Paddy's Milestone. The Ailsa Craig, also known as Paddy's Milestone, is basically a lump of rock which sticks out of the sea at the entrance to the Clyde estuary from the Irish Sea. The Ailsa Craig, I believe, is now a protected bird sanctuary, but it is also where stone is mined for curling, that game that's played on ice which is only released to the world every time the Winter Olympics is on. The Ailsa Craig, or Paddy's Milestone, also has some personal significance to my wife and I, and if you want to know why, go over to the main Living the Dream channel and look back to July 2020 when my wife and I made a short road trip to Ireland. Okay, it's time to turn west in the direction of the Kintyre Peninsula and then the 14 miles of open water that separates Scotland from Ireland.
Hotel flag indicate you are 51 miles north, turn left heading.
Right, as you can see on the right-hand Garmin 1000 that we're approaching the Kintyre Peninsula. This southern tip of our Guyland Butte is pretty barren. The main town in the south is called Campbelltown, and it's also home to the ex-Air Force base from World War II called Machrihanish, which for aviation also has a VOR station and is commonly used as a waypoint for aircraft travelling between Europe and North America, as aircraft either enter or exit the North Atlantic tracks. Just beyond Kintyre is 14 miles of open water which separates Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it is here you can clearly see the North Antrim coast. That's the County Antrim coast of Northern Ireland. This 14-mile stretch of water is also extremely treacherous. It is where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Irish Sea, where the average current is at least 6 knots. As a result, it is somewhere you really don't want to have to put down in during an engine failure, and as a result, many pilots flying single piston engined aircraft will choose to climb to 7,000 or 8,000 feet just to keep themselves within gliding range of either coastline. Of course, this wouldn't faze a real world Diamond DA62 pilot with those 2 Mercedes-Benz diesel engines sipping away at good old Jet A. Ahead of us now is Rathlin Island, population around 150 people, and is reached by a small ferry from Ballycastle in County Antrim. But as you can imagine, there's not a lot there, but it's nice that the virtual world has recreated this island, especially in Orbx EU Northern Ireland, which is the scenery area we've now moved into. My plan at this point in the flight was to drop down to around 500 feet and take a run along the North Antrim coast towards the Giant's Causeway and see how Orbx EU Northern Ireland is presenting this popular tourist destination made famous, of course, by the Game of Thrones. And the headland straight ahead of us is exactly where the Giant's Causeway is, so let's take a look.
United 162, climb and maintain flight level 340. Climb flight level 340, United 162.
Well guys, that was it. That was the Giant's Causeway in the virtual world, delivered by Orbx EU Northern Ireland in prepared 3D version 4.5. Anyway, we're overhead Port Rush at the moment, so what I'm going to do here is turn left and backtrack inland towards the east coast of County Antrim and again the Irish Sea, because I want to do a run down through the Larne area, Islandmagee to Belfast Lough, and down to the capital city of Northern Ireland itself, of course, Belfast. So all that to come as I continue my scenic trip between Strathaven and Newtownards in this gorgeous Carenado DA62. And here we are approaching the entrance to Larne Lough, and of course Larne being the main ferry port town in County Antrim, served by the large P&O roll-on, roll-off ferries from Cairnryan in Scotland. Straight ahead of us is the Ballylumford power station on Islandmagee, and I have to admit I'm really impressed by this level of detail being delivered by Orbx EU NI.
832, contact Scot control at 119.875. 119.875.
It's fair to say that Islandmagee really isn't an island at all, because as you can see straight ahead of us, the island, which isn't really an island, is connected to the mainland of County Antrim at the town of Whitehead. As we turn south overhead Whitehead, straight ahead of us is Belfast Lough. And here we are approaching Kilroot Power Station, just a few miles up Belfast Lough from Carrickfergus. And time to descend again to around 500 feet, because I want to show you how well Carrickfergus has been depicted here in Orbx EU NI. Carrickfergus is of course home to Carrickfergus Castle, without a doubt the best maintained Norman castle in the world. I went to school only 3 miles from Carrickfergus, so as you can imagine the history of this area was well documented, part of the Northern Ireland syllabus. As we come back around for another loop over Carrickfergus, I should also tell you that it has got one of the most fantastic marinas in all of Northern Ireland. And of course Carrickfergus is well known in history as the place that William of Orange first landed in Ireland in 1690. Leaving Carrickfergus behind us, the hill ahead of us right now is called Knocka. I'm even more impressed that Orbx has recreated Knocka Monument, which is a memorial completed in 1939 to remember all of those from County Antrim who lost their lives in the Second World War. And growing up in Northern Ireland and going to school in Monkstown, I would have seen the Knocka Monument every day of life. Because we're now entering Newtown Abbey, which was my hometown for the first 27 years of my life. And in fact, the first house that I bought in 1994 is just down here to our left in a development known as the Brambles. However, I grew up on an area just off the Doak Road on the edge of Carnmoney Hill, which is exactly where we're overhead now. And again, I think Orbx has done a pretty damn good job at presenting this area of Northern Ireland.
6742 Belfast approach, roger, altimeter 3027.
Straight ahead of us now is the city of Belfast, and as you can see, the M2 and M5 motorways are very well presented here by Orbx, and so is Belfast Harbour itself, made famous by those two large yellow cranes called Samson and Goliath. And of course these two cranes signified Harland and Wolff, the shipyard made famous by the ill-fated Titanic. And of course next door to the Harland and Wolff shipyard and of course the Samson and Goliath cranes is Belfast City Airport, also known as George Best, Belfast City Airport. For me, this is presented and prepared 3D version 4.5 by UK's 2000 Belfast City Extreme. And if you look back in the Sim Sunday catalogue on YouTube, you will see me landing an Aerosoft Airbus A320 of Aer Lingus at this very airport. And next up, you're going to see Stormont, the home of democracy in Northern Ireland, and therefore the home of the Northern Ireland Assembly. And yes guys, I'm going to say it again, I think Orbx has done an excellent job at presenting this part of Northern Ireland here in Prepared.
Traffic, Windstar, 9er, Charlie, Echo, the street miles, southwest 1,300, inbound to land. Runway 22.
And as we approach Strangford Lough, we're approaching the end of the flight because just off our left wing is the town of Newtownards and of course the home of Newtownards Airfield. I reckon that most people in Northern Ireland who take the plunge into a PPL or even a sport flight licence will have learnt to fly at this little GA airport. For me, growing up in Northern Ireland, Newtownards was also the home of the Newtownards Air Show where I saw the red arrows many times. Anyway, I'm planning to land on runway 22, so that's an approach from overhead the town of Newtownards. And at the time of recording this video, it had been many months since I'd flown in a GA aircraft in Prepared. As most of you know who follow this channel, you'll realise that I much prefer flying the larger tube liners. So that's my excuse guys for a less than perfect landing here on runway 22 at Newtownards. But as I turn on to final, I really want to just take this opportunity to thank you for watching this video. Being a tube liner pilot in the virtual world, this video has certainly been very different. I hope you've enjoyed this sightseeing trip between Strathaven and Newtownards, made possible by this excellent version of the Carenado Twinstar DA62, and not forgetting the fantastic scenery being delivered by Orbx EU Scotland and of course Northern Ireland. And of course the goal of this video is to show you what is possible with a copy of Flight Simulator software and a decent performance PC. Right, time for me to shut up and get this Carenado DA62 on the ground here at Newtownards. And until the next video here on Sim Sunday, thank you very much for watching. Wherever you're flying in your virtual world, don't forget to fly safe.